Hey everybody, Jimmy from Superpath here. Before we dive into this video, just wanted to give a quick shout out to the team over at Topic. Um, they're going to show us the tool, they're going to show us how they use it, they're going to offer some of their own expertise on SEO and content optimization along the way. Um, they're an official Superpath partner now. That means that they're helping us keep this community free for all of us to come and learn and grow and connect and find new roles, hire folks, et cetera, et cetera. The Superpath community doesn't exist without partners like Topic. So just want to give those guys a quick shout out. If you do want to give Topic a try for yourself, you can go to usetopic.com/superpath and you'll get 30% off. While you're there, I'd also recommend checking out their free tools. They have 5 or 6 free tools, which are incredibly helpful, including a personal favorite, which is a table of contents generator. It'll just spit out the HTML so you can just plug it in your site and it'll just work. If you've ever tried to write that HTML on your own and you're not technical like me, it's difficult and you'll probably get all confused and need to find help from someone more technical. So just go use their free tools. They have a couple over there, really helpful. I'll get out of the way now. Usetopic.com/superpath if you want to check it out. Thanks so much to Rio and Nick, and enjoy this video. Thanks. Okay, cool. Kind of dovetailing off that, next thing we're going to talk about is how to rank higher by optimizing content. In this case, we're going to take a look at Topic and not just the main product, but some of the free tools you guys have that are also helpful. So Rio, if you're good, I'll hand it over to you.
Sounds good. Yeah. So the previous video, Nick showed you how to get all of the pages that have opportunities for optimization that might not be ranking that well, or maybe used to rank well, but are declining now and need a boost. So we'll be talking through a couple steps that you can take to actually bump those rankings up. And I think in talking about this topic, one of the important things to consider is content optimization as a topic in general, and thinking about SEO in general. I think one thing that is important to understand is that there are two major levers that you can pull when you're optimizing content. The first being authority, that's built over time, backlinks that you're building, and how well Google thinks you are authoritative in a certain topic. And then the second is the quality of the content that you have. And this is how well it helps your audience accomplish their job. And so, in terms of what you actually have control over in the short term, is that quality of the content. And as time passes, the content that you published in the past slowly becomes less and less relevant as the world changes. So, we're really focused in on helping content marketers achieve a superior quality piece of content. And that is sort of vague, like what is quality content, but I think one one key thing is that it depends on your audience. It depends on what they're trying to get done, and what they're actually most excited to consume, whether that's a long or short article, whether it's a really factual scientific article or something that's more entertaining and has a specific voice. Ultimately, what they're trying to get done is the most important thing. And so usually in that process, I'll just go ahead and share my screen real
Yeah.
quick. Um, Usually in that process, let's say that we have a list of pages that we've identified as opportunities. The first thing to do, for my examples here, I'm using travel because everybody's looking to get out these days. But
Mm-hmm.
let's say we have a travel blog and we're looking to optimize some of these pages. What we do is take one of these queries, and then take a look at the search results, and say, look, let's say we were doing, is it safe to travel to Mexico City, for example. What we do is take a look at the current search results, take a look at what's ranking, because Google's already done the hard work of sorting through the thousands of articles on this and bubbling up the articles that are actually answering this question the best. So by examining each of these, we can learn what they're covering, if there's anything that our article is missing out on, and then optimize it that way. And then also examine other parts of the search results to understand the audience better. But we'll be going now into how we can do this in our system. But at this point, yeah, I wanted to see if you had any questions, Jimmy, because I've been talking for a while.
Yeah, yeah. No, this is helpful. I wonder, I just again, sort of from my own experience, I find that sometimes when you go through a process like this, you end up finding so much related stuff that you could maybe include, and then you have to make this like editorial decision about like where do we stop, like how there's so many related topics, like in this case, for example, like you could, I saw the one article, it's going to talk about all the different neighborhoods, it's going to talk about getting there, it's probably going to talk about COVID, it's going to talk about crime rates, and it kind of, it's like at what point do you actually stop? I don't, maybe you have a better answer for this than I do. I always found that it's just like kind of ends up being an editorial decision about like we're going to do our very best to judge the searcher's intent and then kind of apply our own kind of critical thinking to figure out like the actual scope of this piece so that it doesn't become just like a bloated monster.
Absolutely. I think that the angle that you approach a certain topic with can help direct those editorial decisions. This is an interesting, this is Mexico City safe is an interesting uh, topic because I think I saw somewhere um, an article about um, why is Mexico City, why don't you want to travel to Mexico City? And it takes sort of
Mm,
a different approach rather than reassuring travelers. It's like all the dangerous or exciting things about traveling there. And so it takes a sort of a contrarian approach to the angle, and that directs the kind of things that they include
that's
in that
interesting.
article.
Yeah, I like
Um,
that.
yeah. So I think it's a good point though, is that the whole point isn't necessarily to just compile everything into something giant necessarily. Is to have a specific angle and then see how all the things that are in the back of people's minds when they search for this term, how those concepts could be integrated into that larger vision, that angle.
Right, right.
Yeah. Um, but in terms of how we can automate this process with our software, topic. In our system, basically, what you can do is you can take the list of those keywords and the list of those pages and then have our system analyze it. So, what that would actually look like is you could create a brief, improve existing content, and then paste in those keywords and then paste in those URLs. And our system will essentially do what we just talked about, but in bulk all at the same time.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
and once that's done, it takes a couple minutes, so I've done it ahead of time. You'll be able to see the different comprehensiveness grades or the content grades for each of those articles, and then you can identify any that are lower than expected, so that you can then open and then grade that content within our system. And there are a lot of tools out there that do this, but I think there are a couple key things that I want to touch on that I feel like would be useful. The first is that uh, the the really important thing when it comes to optimizing content again isn't to just stuff these keywords in. It's to really figure out how to add value for readers, and then use this as a starting point for what's in your audience's head when they're searching for this term. One thing that can be helpful is to take a look at semantically similar clusters of keywords. So you can start to see the larger themes that a lot of the other articles are carrying or covering. And so over here on the right side, you'll see a couple of those groups clustered by color. And so, for example, there's this cluster here on like crime, um, neighborhoods, like you mentioned. I think at the bottom here, one interesting thing is months, and that caught my eye because I wouldn't really think about months as being a thing. But in a lot of the articles, they talk about the weather, and so you know, one thing to consider is that when people are asking is Mexico City safe, they're also wondering about weather-related events. Am I safe from storms or natural disasters? And so that's something to consider as well. And so this can help you identify those gaps that you might have missed if you were just writing this from scratch.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would not have, I I can't imagine like writing without like a kind of an assistant like this and still coming up with time of year as a safety factor. I think that's really interesting that it pulled that out.
Yeah, and I think another point here too is uh, it's not necessarily about using the terms a specific number of times, or it's not about optimizing this for Google. Like including these words might help Google find your article, but really, what our software is focused on is helping keep people on the page longer and adding valuable content to each article.
Yeah, yeah. Do you just I I didn't prepare you for this question, so
Mhm.
if you don't have a good answer, we
Yeah,
can cut it out.
let's.
But yeah, have you guys? Do you have any analysis or even just anecdotal experience with time on page or kind of dwell time and rankings? Like I know that's something that a lot of content marketers shoot for. Like they assume that creating a better experience for the reader, both through like the content itself, but also like the site and the readability and things like that, can play a factor in whether or not Google chooses to rank that better. Have you guys noticed that in your own work?
I think anecdotally we have noticed correlations between time on page, bounce rate, and ranking. When we were building this product out, we were actually doing SEO consulting for a while to uh, do this manually and see what would happen with different customers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we have a we have a case study actually where we um, did this over the course of 2 or 3 quarters, and basically we were watching time on site as well, but we spent like a quarter optimizing a company's existing content and really trying our best to do everything we could to keep people from bouncing out initially. Um, and so we did see pretty significant gains through that process. I don't have the time on site numbers here, but they were pretty similar to this graph where they were consistently correlated.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Makes me think. I sorry, I'm like getting off track here, but it makes me think also of table of contents, which something like I've employed. You see content folks employing that as a tool. Anecdotally, I found it to be hugely useful for improving rankings because it does help people. One, it gives them a better experience because they can get the thing they need faster. I wonder. I don't know. I wonder if like getting them deeper, further down the page also has an effect. Like, you know what I mean? If you sort of it skips the scrolling, gets you, maybe 75% of the way through the page, if that plays a factor. Um,
Absolutely. It's that's a good segue into one of the free tools that we have
yeah, yeah,
that can allow anybody who's creating content to easily put in a table of contents. But basically, we have a free tool. This works for any CMS. We just label it WordPress, but essentially, you can take an existing article URL and then paste it into here. We'll extract the different headings from it, and then you can choose some of the key headings that you want people to be able to jump to. And then what you can do is you can customize how this looks and then embed this into your blog post to
that's
help
very
people
cool.
jump to where they need to get to.
That's really cool. I've done a lot of like janky HTML anchor links to try to make that happen, and it's really a pain to do. So that's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. It's I feel like the what people see when they initially land on the page, that is so critical. A lot of times you'll see huge hero images that take up half the screen, or you know the the title doesn't match the SEO title, or things like that that can be
Mm.
jarring for a user, and that can make a big difference. And so, table of contents is one of those components that can really help.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. I love it.
Um,
I'm sorry I'm sort of like distracting you from
no,
your
it's
main
actually really
talking points.
good. Yeah, I feel like while we're on the topic of free tools, one of the other ways that you can optimize your existing content is to examine questions that people are asking around that specific topic. So another one of our free tools is if you search for people also ask in Google, we're the first organic result here. But
Nice. That's
here,
good.
yeah, you can search for is a query like is Mexico City safe? We'll basically extract questions out of the people also ask box, and then cluster them into semantically related questions so that you can then export that and then use that in the content. And we've seen that as a easy way to boost existing content that you're looking to improve.
That's awesome. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. But
Um,
yeah,
can I ask a question? Actually, sorry,
yeah.
let's see this. And then I have a question for you about the content grading tool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so these are all the questions that we've been able to extract from the system. So, you'll see questions about crime. You'll see questions specifically for, um, uh, safety related to tourism or if it's walkable. But yeah, um, what's your question about the content creator?
But the question there is, I guess, kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier about editorial judgment. Like, do you come across
Mm-hmm.
circumstances where the algorithm makes suggestions about topics or keywords that could be included, but you you choose not to include them, or maybe you choose not to include them at the frequency or density that the algorithm suggests? Like, do you come across that, and do you find yourself ever saying like, I know the reader best, or I've decided the scope of this article is this big, so I'm going to stick to like my editorial judgment versus just including everything?
Yeah, I think there are definitely those scenarios, especially if you're in a niche where you're taking a divergent angle than all the other content.
Yeah.
If you do that, then just by its very nature, a lot of the terms in here might not be relevant to the kind of angle you're going for. And I think in that case, to make things simpler, generally, we usually advise people to open up those topics and ignore them and remove them from this list to just um,
Oh, interesting.
eliminate them from uh, the consideration process when generating this grade.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay, got it. That's interesting. That's cool.
yeah.
Um, I'm curious too about CoPilot. What is that? I'm curious how that works.
Oh yeah, Copilot. This wasn't on the agenda for
I
things to talk
know.
about, but I'm happy to sort of talk about it. But it is a beta feature that we're experimenting with right now. It's essentially a writing assistant built into the content grader. And what it lets you do is basically it helps you complete your thoughts as you're editing documents. It helps you summarize. And how it works is that, say, if you're writing a new article, and let's say we wanted to add a section on, um, the best times of year to avoid storms in Mexico City. So, talking about those months that we saw below down here, we noticed that weather was a thing that people pay attention to. Um, what we can do is Copilot can help us start talking about those concepts, like one thing to consider when visiting Mexico City in the winter um, is weather. You should, and then I actually don't know what this will generate because I don't know what it's like to travel in the winter. So yeah, so this will basically take what your train of thought and then continue
Oh,
that. And
wow.
so here you'll see, that it gets an awful lot of rain during the winter months. This is how much, and so this is really meant to be a brainstorming tool so that you're never staring at a blank page, and you can have the system sort of make suggestions as to different ways that you could explain something.
That's really cool. So it brings in data like the number of inches of rain in a given month, which I noticed pulled in winter months. But then
Mm-hmm.
it was it wasn't just spitting out facts. Like, it's actually like it takes that train of thought and runs with it.
Yeah, exactly. So you
Oh,
started off in
that's
a certain
neat.
direction, and then it sort of goes from there. So that's currently something that we're playing around with. Obviously, not meant to replace writing entirely. You still definitely need somebody to drive it, but yeah, as an assistant, it can help break writer's block.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah,
very, very cool.
yeah. But that's pretty much a couple tips to take your content, improve it, and the different tools that you can utilize, both free and ours. But yeah,
Cool. Very cool. Definitely would encourage folks to go check this out. And I mean, if nothing else, go check out the free tools. I mean, I've never come across free tools that do what topics free tools do. That was a confusing sentence, but like those are actually super helpful. Like I wish, like I said before, like I wish we had more of that kind of thing in the content space. So thank you guys for building those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, there you go. Thanks again to the team over at Topic for partnering up with Superpath. Just a reminder, if you do want to go and check out Topic, try it out yourself, you can get 30% off. Just go to usetopic.com/superpath. Thanks so much, everybody, and take care.